Now, the last two decisions we'll look at are interrelated. The first one, utilization of a constrained resource. What we're looking at here is how do managers decide which products to produce, especially when resources needed for production are in short supply. All right, so any company that has more than one product, they are going to have to decide on what mix of products they want to produce. Do they want 40% of sales to come from product A and 60% from product B? They'll need to look at the profitability. Now, if resources aren't limited, they simply rank these according to the contribution margin per unit or the contribution margin ratio. That looks at what each one can contribute toward fixed cost and income. Sometimes companies have constraints. For a retail company, it might be floor space. For a manufacturer, it might be raw material. I know at one time when the low-carb craze came on with the advent of Splenda, Splenda got in short supply and companies had to determine which products they were going to produce. Direct labor hours. If you have skilled labor, that is going to be an item that might limit how much you can produce. And of course, machine capacity can be a limiting factor because sometimes investing in more machinery is just not an option. When resources are limited, you'll have to look a little bit further at the profitability and calculate the contribution margin per unit of scarce resource. So we might calculate a contribution margin per direct labor hour, or a contribution margin per square foot. Once you do that, to maximize profitability, you'll produce to meet demand of the most profitable product based on that contribution margin per square foot, per labor hour, per machine hour, etc. Then you'll evaluate all of the other products and use the remaining capacity to meet demand for the other products based on this same ranking. Now, this is easier to show you with an example. Slim's Pen Company produces two models of pen sets, Standard and Deluxe. The limiting resource for the company is 4,500 machine hours per month. Relevant data consist of the following. All right, so what we know is we do have a limited resource of machine hours. We know that the sales price is $10 per unit for standards. The variable cost is $8. For deluxes, the sales price is $20 and the variable cost is $12. We know that the standards require 0.1 hours and the deluxes 0.5 hours. And currently there's 20,000 units in demand for the standard product and 8,000 units for the deluxe product. Now what we have to do is decide which of these products will be the most profitable, because if you look at 4,500 machine hours, you can see that we need 0.1 hours for each of the 20,000 units of standard, that's 2,000 hours, and we need 4,000 hours to meet production of the deluxe. So that obviously we need 6,000 machine hours and we only have 4,500 available. That's how we know we have a limited resource. In that case, we're not going to base this simply on which one sells for more. The deluxes clearly sell for more per unit. We're going to dig in and we're going to look at the contribution margin per unit. So each standard unit contributes $2 toward fixed cost and income, and each deluxe unit contributes $8 toward fixed costs and income. Right now it looks like the deluxes are far more profitable, but if you'll notice, since we have a constraint, those deluxe models require a significant amount of that limited resource, 5 times as many hours as the standard. So to quantify this, we're going to calculate a contribution margin per machine hour. We'll take the contribution margin per unit, 2, divide by 0.1 hours, and we get $20 per machine hour. We'll do the same thing for deluxe. We'll take the $8 per unit. We'll divide by 0.5 hours. And we get $16 per machine hour. Now we can see that because the standards require so much less of that limited resource, they actually contribute a greater amount to profitability. So the next thing we would do, well, let me back up. Let's walk through what we just did. First, you calculate the contribution margin per unit. Then you calculate the contribution margin per machine hour. Now we can rank these in terms of profitability. The standard would be the number 1 profitable product. The deluxe model would be number 2. You base it on the contribution margin per machine hour. Now, if we want to go further than just simply ranking them and identify how many units we're going to produce, we need to first recognize that currently 20,000 units of the standard model are in demand and 8,000 units of the deluxe model. So when we do our analysis, we identify standard pens are the most profitable. So we're going to try to make 20,000 pens to meet demand. If we make 20,000 standard pens, we will use 2,000 machine hours, since each one takes 0.1 hours. Since we have 4,500 hours available, we know we can produce all of those standards, and we need to see how many hours remain after we do that. 4,500 hours available minus 2,000 hours used to produce the standard pens leaves 2,500 hours to make deluxe pens. So when calculating the number of deluxe pens to produce, we'll take that 2,500 hours available, and that will be equal to 0.5 hours per unit, since that's what each deluxe unit requires, and we can solve for the number of units that we can produce. So we can produce 5,000 units of the deluxe model. We can't produce all 8,000 that were in demand, but we can produce 5,000 units. So the overall answer here is we'll produce 20,000 units of the standard pens and 5,000 units of the deluxe pens. Next, we'll look at ways that perhaps we could manage this constraint and maybe loosen up the problem with that constraint.